Hiya. Cool. So yeah, as I said, the theme of this is transcendental techniques, or how and to what extent can we bring transcendental techniques into life coaching. So traditionally, transcendental, which really does equate to metaphysical, if we were talking, for example, about the excellent area of personal fitness, for example, where we're looking at the health, bringing the body into a certain formation, achieving certain goals on that level, then of course we'd call that physical. And if we're looking at metaphysical, essentially there, that we could spend a long time, no doubt, discussing what transcendental is and what metaphysical is, we could at least say that metaphysical is the area beyond the physical. Perhaps the most easy, simple explanation of it. It was used by Aristotle in his books, which came after physics, which some people said was just meant to denote the book which chronologically, or in terms of the order of his book, came after physics. I don't believe that at all is the case. Metaphysics is extremely important, and essentially we are dealing there with the spiritual. But what we're aiming to do is to make that as tangible as possible. So we're trying, within this short series, I think what we'll look at is briefly what is transcendental or what are transcendental techniques, and then also, how, to what extent we could bring those into life coaching. But also, I think what we'll do straight away is roughly define that scope of transcendental as useful techniques, which can be, as a technique suggests, are practicable, quite defined in that sense, and can be applied in a practical sense to benefit somebody's well-being. That doesn't by any means diminish their scope for enabling people to achieve states of highly refined states of consciousness, real well-being. And by well-being, we don't just mean well-being when things have just happened to be going well for you. We mean an inner conversion, essentially. We're talking about how we can really help people grow as people, and that within our definition of transcendental, therefore, essentially we're looking at something which enables a person to grow beyond an individual I identity, if you like, to realize more and more their existence on a collective level. Now, that doesn't mean a conformist level of that notion of collective. It means a metaphysical identity which is shared with all humans, even all beings, and potentially even beings from beyond this world that we live in. Certainly the Buddhist tradition and the Vedic tradition look quite clearly at there being hundreds, thousands of world systems. And a lot of these transcendental techniques will tend to come from either Buddhist, Vedic, or from the tradition of Vedanta, or a tradition called the Kashmiri Trika, to name three broad divisions. That said, though religion, or Buddhism, for example, is a religion, it's really more a set of tools. Many people who've practiced anything to do with Buddhism will see it as an effective set of tools for personal transformation, whether we're talking about mindfulness, which of course finds more footing in the mainstream these days, or whether we're talking about understandings that are presented within that particular tradition. So they tend, from anybody's practice, to be extremely beneficial techniques to help personal growth. So they will come from some of those traditions. That said, the modern is extremely useful. It's not a matter of when these things come from. What we're looking at is techniques which are universal, transcend religions, transcend the individual I, and therefore have universal benefit to the practicee. So hopefully we can really discover some very useful techniques, which I'm really hoping you're going to be able to use in your relationships and your coaching relationships. So in the next one, we'll look at one such technique we'll begin with and go from there.